So again, welcome to everybody. This is Motivated to Move. This is the Vintage Fitness team putting this on. My name's Erin, and I'm the owner of Vintage Fitness. Me is a D. So I really, really appreciate the team doing this. It's a learning curve for some of us, and our motivation stories aren't rah. We get up at 5 and are super excited to exercise. There's our own struggles we have with motivating ourselves to exercise well.
Thank you, Erin. Well, 13 years ago, at the tender age of 65, when most intelligent people are contemplating retirement, I catapulted into my fourth career. I decided I wanted to be a personal trainer because for my entire life, I followed my two greatest passions, extensive adventure travel and almost anything in the great outdoors. And both of these demand a huge motivation to keep as fit and energetic as possible so you can continue going on and on and on at full tilt. What I'm going to talk to you about today is I have a cautionary tale I want to share with you. Quite recently, I found that my body is telling me that I am getting less young. And I hate to admit that, but that was a bit of a shock. I'm going to be 80 in less than 2 years, and surprise, surprise, my body is changing. For example, in the morning, I get up and I'm feeling a little bit stiff and I need to exercise and stretch. Never had to do that before. And I noticed that when I get up and down on the floor, for example, to show a client a new abdominal exercise, it's just that little bit harder to get down and certainly to get up. And diet, especially with COVID, being home more, with the fridge much closer, I have to be really careful about weight gain. Because in my 30s, I was 70 pounds heavier. And that's Pamela. Pamela, a really, really special 76-year-old artist who, at 55, left a spectacular career as a VP of one of the biggest international advertising agencies to study fine arts for 4 years at OCAD, which included a whole year drawing and painting in Florence. I've been fortunate enough to train Pamela over the last 5 years, twice a week, and I totally adore this lady. And this is despite her telling me constantly how she hates physical exercise. However, she will admit to me that the 2 sessions a week together with me are the only exercise that she gets. And she says, and I quote, "My body would seize up if I didn't have Dee to encourage me, to motivate me, and to nag me mercilessly into action." And then she went on to admit, and probably, Dee, this is a poor substitute for motivation, but for me, to pay and show up, that seems to be working. But in fact, Pam does have motivation, despite all her loathing physical exercise. Let me tell you her goals. We put her motivation into goals. One is to maintain her cardiovascular health, so she can walk constantly without stopping or running out of breath, because Pam has very serious COPD. The next one is to maintain her upper and lower body strength, so she can lift and play with her lovely grandchildren, 6, 4, 3, and I believe another one coming next month. And also with them in mind, to maintain her ability to get up and down off the floor, so she can romp around and play with these aforementioned grandchildren. And finally, her goal, to increase her overall flexibility so that her advanced osteoarthritis, which is making her body stiffer and less able to move pain-free, would be a little bit better. I believe that training has to be a real personal relationship between the trainer and the client, and it has to be absolutely as fun as it can be. Pamela tells me that she's feeling confident with the exercises we do together, as well as the fact she's relieved that we can adapt depending how her body is feeling that day, and that changes. I also personally believe that it's most important that we always celebrate accomplishment, the big and the small. Pamela said at the beginning, I just pay and show up, and that works as motivation. But I believe it's much, much more than that for Pamela. For example, After a good session together, the huge silver lining for me is that she'll smile at me wryly and tell me that she's feeling proud, or really rather surprised at all the accomplishments she did in that very long hour together. So quickly to summarize Pam, her motivation: to be able to play easily and pain-free with her beloved grandchildren. Her barrier: she really does seem to abhor exercise. And I wanted to say a lesson learned. And the lesson learned for me is, if your goals and desires are really important to you, you will do almost anything to make them come true, even exercise.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Dee. So before we meet your next client, a couple of questions. So a few very impressed people. So we have Wendy saying, wow, just wow. So the nice words there. And then Luba asked you to repeat your definition of motivation.
The definition of motivation is, I think it's a very, whoops, wrong one. I'm so sorry. Definition of motivation is the reason why we are doing something, coupled with the level of desire that you have to do it. In other words, what you want and how badly you want it.